this is Lynn with Paper Life, and today I want to work on the week 3 of our Junking Up challenge. We need to use a stencil or ink stamp, and make inchies. I have never made inchies before. I actually came across even that term a few months ago when I was looking up how to make an ATC card, because I hadn't made those either. That's something I really want to stress to everybody. When you're doing the Junking Up challenge, this is not about perfection. It's not about us knowing how to do all of it. Some months or even some weeks, it may be something that you are very comfortable with, and it's nothing new. Other weeks, it might be something completely new to you. It's just trying it. There is no right or wrong. You get an A for effort just because you attempted to do it, I guess, is what I'm trying to get across. So, while back, well, I say a while, not too long ago, I bought these markers from Five Below. They're $5. They're just a kind of like store brand generic alcohol ink marker. I've been eyeing alcohol ink markers for a long time now because I do calligraphy and modern calligraphy, and I tend to watch new products that are coming out on the market and drool over them, but didn't want to pay the price tag. So I got those for like $5. However, had really no idea how I was going to use them. So I found a video on YouTube. I'll link the video down below because really most of my ideas or the basic concepts came from this video. So I have been playing with them, and today I want to play with them, and we're going to use it as a background for the inchies. Now, I'm using these markers. I'm going to go over some of the other markers that you can use, and I'll do that now actually. There are the Sharpies, which I found that the thick one like this, or the brush, actually the brush was my absolute favorite out of the Sharpies, but I didn't have very many of them, work really well. This one will drive you crazy. The video that I watched, the lady actually used these, which is the Bic Markets. I found these to be the most similar to these to these. I also experimented with the Ranger liquid alcohol ink. I have a whopping 3 of these, and I love them, but they're just kind of expensive. So when we get done, I'll show you the different results with all of them. Sorry. I have the 91% alcohol ink on hand. I've heard that this one's supposed to be a little bit better than the 71%. I think it's 71. It's a little bit lower percentage. A friend of mine was doing this with me. She was at home and we were chatting on Facebook. She used a lower percentage and didn't have a problem with it. The paper I'm going to use today, yes, there is special paper that you can get for alcohol inks. Let's just say I'm not going to go through and buy everything special for every project because I would just have way too much stuff. I have got stacks of these photo paper. They'd be 5x9, I guess. HP, Canon are the two that I was experimenting with. I got them at Goodwill for like 69 cents. I'm not telling you to go buy photo paper for this project because photo paper on its own, unless you happen to find it somewhere, is pretty expensive. If I was going out to buy a product for this project, it would not be photo paper. I would buy the actual thing, unless you had another use for the photo paper. I have a little plastic container that I put some alcohol ink in, a paintbrush, a little spray bottle with alcohol ink. That's about it. For some reason, The sticky side of the photo, well, not sticky, the shiny side of the photo paper really wants to stick to my mat. Make sure that you protect your work area because this is kind of messy, or can be messy. One thing I found with these markers, unlike the alcohol ink, because I've used the alcohol ink right on the side that you would actually print of the photo paper, and it works just fine. But with the markers, for some odd reason, it works better on the back. And yes, the back has writing. But with all the ones I was playing with, usually it gets busy enough that you never notice the writing. That's why I said if you're going to go buy something, I don't think I would buy the photo paper if you're buying it especially for this project. So we're going to see how I do this because I am not an expert. I'm not an expert about anything. And you're going to watch how artistic I am in my abilities with this. All I did was make random designs. Some of the ones I had done were lines, like strips. Other ones were, most of them I guess were kind of just random like this. You can leave blank spots between them if you so choose to. I found that it seemed like it worked a little bit better if there wasn't a lot of blank spots because this ink's not going to move as much as the liquid ink. If that makes sense. There definitely is a difference between what product you use. I guess that's more what I'm trying to get at. So it's really just experimenting and having fun with it. Put a little right there. The colors will kind of blend together if you happen to go over them. But to me that doesn't really matter because I'm going to kind of blend them together anyways. Now I try not to go over the darkest colors with the lightest markers. But it happens. I don't think I said with these markers there's two different tips. They're dual tips. So you have the thicker one, which I've been using, and the pointy thinner. Yeah. Where else do I want some purple? Let's do, I'm getting kind of enough purple right there. There were 12 different colors in this kit, and all of them worked really well for what I was doing here. The only one that did not work the way I wanted it to for this project was the black. It did not seem to blend like the other ones did, and I'll show you that here in just a moment. Show you what I mean. I feel like this would make more sense if I stopped putting the caps back on. Alright, let's get a little pink going right here. And we're going to bring this blue in down here just a little bit. There we go. Isn't my art beautiful? Now what I liked to do, and what I have been doing on the other ones, is I'll dip my paintbrush into the alcohol and kind of put a little dot in between my colors, because that gets kind of the most movement between them. And really that's the fun about this, is that none of these are going to come out exactly the same. everybody's going to have a different technique or style or come across something different that they liked. This is just what I did. Now I will say with these, you can blow on it to kind of move the ink around. It doesn't have as much pigment as the liquid alcohol inks, so it just didn't give the same effect. It gave a different effect. I feel like I'm going to say that a lot. It's just not the same, but kind of the same. They just all worked slightly different. And I only have the Ranger liquid alcohol ink, so you guys might, if you guys are into doing alcohol inks, you may already know that potentially different alcohol inks even act differently. I don't know this. So once I got them kind of where they were moved around and I didn't have hard lines between all the colors. Get out of my way, markers. I would kind of wait for it to dry. I found that because this didn't take as much ink down on, or didn't take as much alcohol down on the page to move it like the liquid did, that honestly I didn't even get out a heat gun when I was working with it. It usually dried quite quickly all on its own. So once that's somewhat dry, I like doing little splatters in there. Get little splatters going. And as you can tell, my bigger splotches are not completely dry yet, so they're kind of mixing into there. Let's see. See, this is what I mean. I don't know, like, I'm not doing anything fancy. It's just sticking onto my silicone mat. Ah, there we go. Sorry, I think I hit you guys. So I'm going to do a little bit so you guys can see what I'm talking about, where it kind of blended those colors together. Plus that gave me a minute for it to dry while I was talking to you. See, there was a reason behind it. So all I did was just kind of messed with it like this. I did not have the best luck going back in to add ink into it. And I guess I'll kind of show you what I mean by that. Let's say I wanted more color right in this area. If I went in and I added ink, even though it's dry, it would kind of just diffuse what was already there. I don't know if that made sense, but I didn't love that aspect about it. So it was just kind of whatever was there was what I worked with. And just play with it. Want that right in there a little more dotted. Give me dots. I like my dots. So my idea for the inchies is I'm basically just going to use this as the background. And then like the spray, I found that if I sprayed it real up close and personal, you put down more alcohol in a smaller area. So it really did a good job kind of mixing the colors. My favorite way to do it was to hold it back from it. So it was just like a light mist, because then it added more dots. Now if I kind of did a blow, just to kind of move the ink just a little bit, it would disperse it out more. See, like I'm at this point right in here, the ink's starting to get a little more pooled, I guess, a little more mixed together, where out in here it's more like the little tiny dots. So it's really just finding what you like, what works for you, experimenting, having fun, playing. I mean, isn't that what all crafting is about? Currently, while I'm looking at this, even under the lights, I don't see any of the HP other than one little spot right there where I see a little bit of writing. So as long as that area is dry, and I think it is, I'm going to just kind of give it some more interest to disguise that. Now, while this is drying in Fantasy World, I will tell you with this ink, it seemed to take a lot longer for it to dry because my next step is going to be putting clear gesso on top because I want to seal this in while still having it a work surface. If I use something like Mod Podge, it will seal it in and lock it in where it's no longer a work surface. With using the clear gesso, it makes it a work surface because the next few steps I'm going to do are going to be water-based. So I don't want to mess with this. I want this to stay the way it is. I want this part locked in. So that's still wet, and this ink, quite literally, it seemed like it never completely dried, but it still looked good, and I'll show you what I mean. Before I forget, I'm going to show you what the black did that I did not care for as much. Really, no matter how much I messed with it, you could still see where my initial dots were from the black ink. Even though it spread out, the initial spot where I put it showed. I didn't really care for that, so I stopped using it. However, it does have an advantage because like on this one that I did the background and I wrote with the black marker. I sprayed it all, I did everything, but the black just didn't want to move as much. You can still kind of see how it did spread out a little bit, but I liked it for that reason. It's where like just playing with it and experimenting comes from. Now I'm going to grab one that I've already done that's dry, Magic of TV or YouTube, or the fact that I wasn't sure if this was going to work, so I actually did some of these ahead of time. Here's one that I did. You can see I started off with vertical slanted lines. Grab my clear gesso. This is one that I made, but you can very easily buy it. I guess I will also link the video if you guys are curious about it. It's super easy. It just uses glue, water, and cornstarch because I wanted it to be matte. Okay, there's a string on my... So I grab my bigger paintbrush. And I'm just going to put a nice coating over all of it. So this particular page has sat for overnight, and it does look like the ink is dry currently. It's not spreading. And because I keep saying it's spreading, this one I did before, just to see if it would work. And right in here, the pink wasn't completely dry, so it just kind of ran it a little bit. I actually kind of liked it better, but that's what happened. So once this goes on, you can either use a heat gun and dry it, or just let it sit. And I'm going to cover that back up. I put a sandwich bag on top of my mason jar, so when I put the lid on, I twist it down. I can now get it back open, because that will sometimes dry extremely hard to get back open. Alright, you need to get off of here, because we're going to use the magic of TV again. See, it's stuck down again. Come on, get off. Okay. So, magic is one's already done and dry. Let's see if I have my wet wipes are out of my reach, so I'm just going to kind of get some of this off of here. Now I went through and I tested Sharpies, Bics, and alcohol ink to make sure that the clear gesso would go on top of it without a problem. Here is the Ranger liquid alcohol ink. I will say the ink moves so much easier. I actually, after using the other ones, I moved it too much where it got kind of muddy in the middle. But clear gesso is just fine on it. Here is the Sharpie, which were just these two. The inks do not want to blend as well. Again, that could be a benefit depending on what you do. This ink dried extremely quick, where I could put the clear gesso on it almost immediately afterwards and not have it run. See, here's where I was doing my scribbles, because I was going to test the black, and I gave up. But I'll tell you, this one is my favorite from the Sharpies, and maybe from any of them, just because of the tip. It's so easy to work with, but it just doesn't mix and blend as much as I would want for it to. So, benefits, drawbacks, just different. This one was done with the Bics. I'm going to be pretty honest, these did not seem to have any difference than this. Seemed like they worked about the same. The only difference, I just said no difference, and then there's a difference, of course, is that you have a little bit smaller tip. So it does take longer sitting there drawing with it. But those were the ones I tested on. Clear gesso went on, not a problem. So whatever you have, give it a try. You don't have to go out and buy something special. If you happen to have Sharpies, give it a try. If you have the Bics, do it. The Ranger, give it a try. Chances are it'll work. I can't guarantee that it'll work for every single thing, because obviously I only tested what I had at home. So here's one that is already dry. Yay. Now I can get on to maybe getting this stuff out of my way a little bit. You go over there. So now that there is the clear gesso on here, I'm going to start working with my water-based products. Let me get those out of my way. Like, I have a stamp here that I had thought about using. It's just a scribble font. Of course, I have the glare. It's just a scribble font. You can't really make out what it says. My intentions is to use like a stencil and like texture paste. You can build it up a little. So I'm thinking I need more room on my desk. Get those, you move. I think I'm going to use an archival ink for my stamp. I'm torn between the ground espresso or the black. Yeah, I guess even the hickory smoke would look nice. Alright, let's try the hickory smoke first. Worst case scenario, it's too light and we don't like it and we just do something else. And we just add it to the background more. I do have my stamping platform thing, but I'm not going to use that. I think what I'm going to use is just like flip it over and use my hand, because I want it to not be so consistent. Like, I'm okay with it being splotchy. I'm okay with some of it being stamped more than other spots. I will say one thing I've noticed with using clear gesso is that my stamping inks, and really any of my inks, just take a little bit longer to dry and set. Again, sometimes a good thing, sometimes a bad. You know what is a bad thing? Me not having my baby wipes closer. So I'm just going to put a paper towel to soak up a bunch of that ink and then clean it here in a moment, because that is a bad thing. Alright, put this back on top of here. Okay, get off of my mat. Now, because I was just doing it with my hand and not using a stamping block, I got kind of a double stamp in some areas. I just wanted it sporadic because we're going to cut this down to 1 inch by 1 inch. So I don't want you to see like 2, the word 2, and then you're like, well, what's the rest of it? Because that might drive me crazy. Okay, so there is the archival stamp or ink. So we have another layer that if I add in the texture paste, once that's dry, we don't have to worry about that writing moving too much, even though that was kind of my goal. The more I think about it, I'm kind of concerned with the texture paste, that when I cut into it, it may want to crack or crumble. Guys, I am not a mixed media person. I do not do it very often. I do it some just because it's fun to mix into my projects, but I don't have a lot of answers. So let's see. I'm going to pause you for a second and grab my stencils and a bottle of Tattered Angels, I think. I think that would be cool. Give me just a moment. Okay, so here is a stencil that I grabbed. Just has kind of swirls to it. I'm not really worried about the pattern as much because, again, you're only going to see a small section of it. Grabbed Glimmer Mist in Blue Steam, which is just really a pretty blue, kind of darker blue, shiny. Place my stencil down, and I'm just going to spray over it. I'm not even completely positive that's going to pick up a lot of the stencil. You know, I should have grabbed baby wipes while I was up. Try to get that off without completely smearing it. Yeah, I should have grabbed baby wipes while I was up, but I didn't. Don't go on there. The good thing is Glimmer Mist isn't the worst thing to get off stencils. I think that's texture paste. So remember what I said, that when at least in my experience, when I use clear gesso, it takes it a little bit longer to dry. So you could either use a heat gun or just wait for it to dry, or work on another project at the same time, or try to get your mat somewhat clean. I am going to, yeah, that's still really wet, so I'm going to pause you for a minute while I get that dry. Okay, so in the theory of keeping this real, I went with the darker blue color. I thought I would add a nice interest or contrast to the bright colors, but when I'm looking at it, it kind of looks like it takes away from it. So if I could rewind time, I would probably use a lighter color. However, I do not have the ability to do that, so we're going to keep it real and I'm going to use what I got. So let me get that off of there. And if you have a paper cutter, then by all means use that. Yes, I have one and I should so use it more, but I can't cut straight with it, so this is how I cut. So we're just going to watch me cut. I should get 4 from each side, so that'll be enough. My theory of how I was going to use these is I use my junk journal as a planner. So I was kind of thinking I might use the 1x1s, the inchies, to identify Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all that good stuff. Now what I like about these is that each one is going to be different. You're not going to get the same thing. I mean, I guess you could. I'm not going to get the same thing. Come here, ruler. Go on the line. Thank you. Trying to cut this one easy because that would be the one that would give me a hard time. You know what? I'll do that one later. I'll do that one later because you guys don't need to sit there and watch me cut all those. I got out these, they're metal wax. I have not been able to find any more of these. I wish I could because I only have gold and copper. I don't use them very often, but they're really pretty. Another lady had found these, and they're actually really good. You get 4 different color palettes for, I think it was like 20, maybe 30 bucks off of Amazon. So it's a good deal. Well, okay, I don't know if it's a good deal. I feel like it's a good deal because I don't go through them very often. I'm sure those would be enough forever for me. But I'm going to use this one because of the pieces being kind of on the dark side. I think I want brightness. Oh, these, just little cheap makeup sponges. I got mine from Walmart. They have them at Dollar Tree, all the other ones. The reason I use that is mostly because I feel like I waste so much of this product on my fingers. And this just gives me a little more control on where they go. So my theory is that I'm going to kind of distress around the edges with the gold. Can you see that? And they're kind of interesting to hold on to at this point. So I just want to frame them. I want to, when I put them down on my page, I want it to kind of stand out as being different. My other thought was that if you put a hole in, well, you'd want to back it on something like, I would want to back it on something like cardstock, just give it a little strength. But then you could put a hole in it and make it into a like charm. That was a idea I had, but I haven't done that yet, obviously. Okay, so I think everybody gets the point of what I'm going to do here. I'm trying to keep these videos shorter, and I'm also trying not to have to go in and do a bunch of editing, just so hopefully I will continue to make them, because it feels like when I keep them shorter and I don't have to do all the editing, it's more organic. I feel like that's my new favorite word. Maybe feel is my new favorite word. I feel. So you guys get the idea of what I did here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put that on all the way around. I'm going to cut this one into the same inch square, go around them. You could put something, you know, in the middle of them. I think what I may end up doing is just, since I am going to use this in my journal for planning for the week, is maybe put an M for Monday. Oh, I don't think you can see that. This was just a Dollar Tree marker. See if I can get this pulled back up again. Yay. So I just took a marker and put an M there. Can't figure out how to move my hand so you can see it. Or maybe I won't. I don't know, because it kind of seems like that takes away from it. I don't know. Probably not. But I'll get it put in my book, and I'll show you guys if you're in Paper Lifers. I'll post something up showing you guys what I ended up doing with them. Because I do use these things in my personal journal, just because it makes where I don't have to put something else in there. And I don't like writing on a blank page, or it feels too intimidating. There's too much room there. My week is not that involved. But thank you all for joining me. I will see you all later. Hopefully you have fun. Hopefully you do this challenge. And if you do, please share it and tag me. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, blah, blah, blah. I'll see you all later. Bye.